Trillion-Dollar Coach, The Leadership Playbook of Silicon Valley's Bill Campbell, by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and Alan Eagle. Introduction. On a warm April day in 2016, an extraordinary group of people gathered on a high school football field in Atherton, California. 155. It wasn't a tech conference or a product launch. It was a memorial service. 155. And the people who came to pay their respects were the titans of our modern world. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founders of Google, were there. 158. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, sat in the audience. 158. Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook. The list went on. 158. 159. It was a concentration of power and influence rarely seen in one place. 160. They had all come to honor one man, William Vincent Campbell, Jr. 155. But who was this man? He wasn't a famous inventor or a billionaire CEO. He wasn't a coding genius who built an empire from his garage. In fact, for the first half of his life, he was a college football coach with a losing record. 97. He was a gruff, tough-talking guy from a small steel town in Pennsylvania, known for his love of football, beer, and a well-placed curse word. 173, 1685, 467. So how did this person, this outsider, become the most trusted advisor and mentor to Steve Jobs, the Google founders, and dozens of other leaders who have collectively built over $1 trillion in market value? 371, 372, 373. What was his secret? That is the mystery we're going to unravel today. The book Trillion-Dollar Coach pulls back the curtain on Silicon Valley's best-kept secret. 82. It reveals a set of timeless principles about leadership, connection, and humanity that are more vital today than ever before. By the end of our time together, you'll understand the single, almost secret ingredient that this coach used to build legendary teams and shape the modern world. And it's an ingredient that is accessible to every single one of us, whether you're leading a company, a small team, or just trying to be a better friend. It's a lesson that could change the way you see success itself. Book summary. To understand the genius of Bill Campbell, you have to start where he did, on the football field. As a player at Columbia University, he wasn't the biggest or the fastest. 94. He was undersized, listed at 165 pounds. 177. But he played with so much heart and grit that his teammates nicknamed him Ballsy. 323. He became the team captain and led them to their only Ivy League title in history. 179, 180. He loved the game so much that he became a coach, eventually landing the head coaching job back at his alma mater, Columbia. 192. But here, his greatest strength became his greatest weakness. He struggled, leading the team through 6 straight losing seasons. 97. Why? As he later admitted, he had too much compassion. 210. He cared too much about his players as people. 98. He couldn't bring himself to be ruthless, to bench a hard-working kid just to get a slight edge. 99. In the zero-sum world of college football, that kind of heart could be a liability. So at age 39, with his coaching career over, he did something completely unexpected. He entered the business world. 215. He moved to Silicon Valley to work at Apple under John Sculley. 221. And it was here, in the fast-paced, high-stakes world of technology, that Bill discovered something profound. The very compassion that made him a losing football coach was the secret ingredient to building winning teams in business. 213. This brings us to the first, and most important principle of Bill Campbell's playbook. It's the people. This might sound simple, almost like a cliché you'd see on a motivational poster. But Bill lived it with an intensity that was revolutionary. Think about this story. In the early 2000s, Google's young founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, had a radical idea. They were skeptical of traditional management. 489 They came from academia, where people work on projects without someone managing them. 488 So they decided to get rid of all the engineering managers. 486 They called it a disorg. 487 When Bill Campbell, who had just started coaching the executive team, heard about this, he went to Larry. "We have to get some managers in here," he said. 500 Larry pushed back. "Why do we need them? We're doing fine without them." 501, 503. The argument went back and forth until Bill, using a classic move from his playbook, said, "Let's just go talk to the engineers." 504. They walked down the hall and found a few engineers working late. Bill asked one of them a simple question. "Do you want a manager?" 506. The engineer's answer was immediate. "Yes." 507. "Why?" Bill asked. The engineer replied, "I want someone I can learn from, and someone to break ties." 508. They asked a few more engineers that night, and the answer was always the same. 509. They wanted to be managed, as long as the manager was someone who could help them grow and make decisions. 510. This simple moment reveals the core of Bill's philosophy. Management isn't about control, or hierarchy, or telling people what to do. It's about service. The primary job of any manager, Bill believed, is to help their people be more effective and to help them grow and develop. 564. This led to one of his most famous mantras, a piece of wisdom given to him by a colleague named Donna Dubinsky after he became a first-time CEO and tried to micromanage everyone. She pulled him aside and said, "Bill, your title makes you a manager. Your people make you a leader." 539. Leadership isn't something you can claim for yourself. It's something you earn. It's granted to you by the people you lead, because they see that you are there to support them, to clear obstacles, and to help them succeed. The manager's top priority, he would say, is the well-being and success of her people. 593. If you keep that as your North Star, everything else falls into place. So, how did he put this principle into practice? He focused on mastering the fundamentals of management, starting with the most basic interactions. He believed that the two most important tools a manager has are one-on-one meetings and staff meetings. 624, 625. Let's start with staff meetings. At Google, the executive staff meeting, led by CEO Eric Schmidt, always started the same way. 595. It wasn't with a review of metrics or a dive into the top agenda item. It started with trip reports. 598. Eric would go around the table and ask people what they did over the weekend, or to share a story from a recent business trip. 598. To an outsider, this might seem like a waste of time. These are some of the busiest, most important people in the world. Why are they talking about their daughter's soccer game or a weekend kiteboarding trip? 599. Because Bill understood a fundamental human truth: people work better together when they know each other as people. 605. This simple ritual wasn't small talk. It was a deliberate strategy to build rapport and human connection. 605, 609. It got everyone engaged in the meeting not just as the head of sales or the VP of engineering, but as human beings. 606. When it came time to debate difficult business decisions later in the meeting, that foundation of personal connection made all the difference. 608. It created empathy. 611. His approach to one-on-one meetings was just as intentional. When you met with Bill, he had a clear structure, but it always began with the personal. 662. How's the family? How are the kids? What's going on in your life outside of work? 663. He genuinely cared, and by starting there, he created a space where you could bring your whole self to the conversation. Then, he would move through a simple framework. First, performance. What are you working on? How's it going? 668. Second, and this is critical, peer relationships. How are you working with your teammates? 669. Bill believed that your relationships with your peers were more important than your relationship with your manager. 670. 671. He'd ask, what do your teammates think of you? That's what's important. 674. Third was management and leadership. Are you guiding your people? Are you helping them grow? 712. And finally, innovation. Are you thinking about how to get better? Are you pushing the boundaries? 716. This structure ensured that the conversation was always holistic, covering not just the what of the work, but the how of leadership and teamwork. From these foundational meetings, Bill taught another crucial lesson. The manager's job is to run a decision-making process, not to be a dictator. He hated consensus. 740. He felt it led to groupthink and watered-down decisions. 740. Instead, he believed in getting all the ideas and all the conflict out on the table. 741. He wanted a battle of ideas, not a battle of egos. He called this the throne behind the round table. 783. At a round table, everyone has an equal voice. 781. The leader's job is to facilitate the debate, to make sure every perspective is heard, especially the dissenting ones. 785. To get the best idea to emerge from the group. But if the team gets stuck and a decision needs to be made, the leader has to step up, break the tie, and make the call. 782. That's the throne. You don't sit in it all the time, but it's there when you need it. A manager's job, he said, is to break ties and make their people better. 763. This all sounds great in theory, but what happens when you have a team of brilliant, ambitious, and sometimes difficult people? This is where Bill's philosophy of team first becomes so powerful. Nothing illustrates this better than a crisis that happened just before Google's IPO in 2004. 1345. The founders wanted to create a special class of stock that would give them and the executive team voting control, to protect the company's long-term vision from short-term market pressures. 1349. 1355. It was a controversial move. 1350. Amidst the tension, some board members suggested that Eric Schmidt, the CEO, should step down as chairman. 1361. Eric was hurt. 1362. He felt he had done a great job. 1362. He'd earned the trust of the founders, the company was thriving, and now this. 1363. In a moment of pride and frustration, he called Bill and said, "I'm going to quit." 1367. This was a critical moment. The leadership team of one of the most promising tech companies in a generation was about to fracture. Bill didn't argue with Eric or tell him he was wrong. He just listened. The next day, he called back with a simple, powerful message. "You can't leave," he said. "The team needs you." 1387. He appealed not to Eric's ego, but to his loyalty. He proposed a compromise: step down as chairman for now, stay on as CEO, and down the road, they would get the chairmanship back for him. 1387. 1388. He reminded Eric, "Your pride is getting in the way of what's best for the company." 1391. Bill's focus wasn't on who was right or wrong. It was on holding the team together. This is his second great principle: work the team, then the problem. When faced with any challenge, our natural instinct is to jump right into solving the problem. What are the issues? What are the options? 1431. Bill's instinct was always to ask a more fundamental question first. Do we have the right team in place to solve this? 1433. Are they working well together? Do they have what they need? 1433. If you get the team right, he believed, the problem will get solved. 1869. How do you get the team right? You start by picking the right players. 1457. Bill looked for 4 key traits. The person had to be smart, not just academically, but able to learn fast and make connections. 1461. They had to work hard. 1462. They had to have high integrity. 1462. And finally, they needed grit, the passion and perseverance to get up after being knocked down. 1463. 1464. He was also famous for managing what he called the aberrant genius, that brilliant, high-performing person who can also be a pain to work with. 832. His rule was simple. You tolerate and even protect these people, as long as their behavior isn't unethical or abusive, and as long as their value to the company outweighs the cost to the team. 876. But the moment their behavior starts to damage the team's cohesion or morale, you have to act. Team first. Always. This team-first mentality extended to creating a diverse and inclusive environment. Decades before it became a major topic of corporate conversation, Bill was a fierce advocate for women in leadership. 1584. At Apple in the 1980s, when a female HR executive named Deb Biondolio would sit in the chairs along the wall during staff meetings, Bill would constantly tell her, "What are you doing back there? Get to the table." 1575. He knew that winning depends on having the best team, and the best teams are diverse teams. 1592. They have more women. 1595. He would tell people, "You can always find a woman for a job. It may just take a little longer." 1596. But even with the right people, teams inevitably face tension. Misunderstandings, disagreements, office politics. Bill's job as a coach was to be a tension spotter. 1648. He would identify the elephant in the room, the big, uncomfortable problem that everyone knows is there but no one wants to talk about, and drag it into the center for everyone to confront. 1639. 1642. He would listen, observe the body language in meetings, and then, behind the scenes, he would go talk to people. 1787. He would fill the communication gaps. 1787. He'd go to one person and say, "Hey, I think you might have misunderstood what she meant." Then he'd go to the other and say, "He's feeling a little frustrated. You should talk to him." He was the glue that held the team together, often through quiet, one-on-one conversations that no one else ever knew about. 1415. This brings us to the final, and most profound, part of Bill Campbell's playbook. The fuel that powered everything else. It's a word you almost never hear in a business context. Love. Bill Campbell brought love into the workplace. 1893. Not romantic love, of course, but what the authors call companionate love, feelings of affection, caring, and compassion for others. 1906. 2195. He showed it most famously with his signature bear hug. 348. He hugged everyone. 349. New employees, board members, CEOs. 1876. When Microsoft tried to buy Intuit, he walked across the stage at the announcement and gave a surprised Bill Gates a big hug. 349. His hugs weren't weak or tentative. He hugged you like he meant it, because he did. 350. 351. This physical expression of care was the foundation for everything. It's what allowed him to be so brutally honest. This is the third great principle. Create an envelope of trust through caring. Bill's candor was legendary. He could tell you your new website was a piece of shit, or that you were being a numbnuts. 1216, 1919. But because you knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was coming from a place of love, that he was pushing you because he believed in you and wanted you to be better, it didn't sting. It motivated. As one person he coached said, it was never about him. Coming from him, it didn't hurt when he told you the truth. 1911. This envelope of trust was built on a few key behaviors. First, he only coached the coachable. 1095. When he first interviewed Jonathan Rosenberg for a job at Google, his only real question was, "Are you coachable?" 1106. He looked for humility, the understanding that you're not perfect and have room to grow. 1111. He couldn't stand burrs, not because they were dishonest with others, but because they were dishonest with themselves. 1141. Second, he practiced what the authors call free-form listening. 1155. When you were with Bill, he was with you. 1151. No checking his phone, no glancing out the window. 1151. He gave you his full, undivided attention. 1154. He wouldn't just listen, he would ask questions, probing to get to the real issue, not just the surface-level problem. 1157. 1160. When you truly listen to someone, you make them feel valued and seen. 1173. And third, he was an evangelist for courage. 1281. He believed in people more than they believed in themselves. 1313. He would push them to be bolder, to take bigger risks. 1278. The phrase "he blew confidence into people" comes up again and again. 1282. He gave people the courage to pursue audacious goals because they knew the coach had their back. Finally, this love manifested in one more powerful way: community. Bill was a master community builder. 2051. He organized an annual trip to the Super Bowl for a group of his closest friends, and in his will, he endowed the trip so they could keep going for at least a decade after he was gone. 2025, 2039, 2040. He co-owned a local sports bar, the Old Pro, just to have a place where people could gather informally, with no agenda, and just connect. 2054, 2055, 2058. He knew that a workplace, a team, a city, any place, is much stronger when people are connected by genuine human bonds. 2052. He invested his time, his energy, and his money into forging those bonds. In the end, what made Bill Campbell the trillion-dollar coach wasn't his knowledge of business strategy or product development. It was his deep understanding of human nature. He knew that to create high-performing teams, you have to create an environment of psychological safety. And the fastest path to that safety is through trust, respect, and love. He measured his success not by his bank account, but by his own yardstick. He once said, "I look at all the people who've worked for me or who I've helped in some way, and I count up how many are great leaders now. That's how I measure success." 2300, 2301. By that measure, he was the most successful person any of us will ever know. Commentary. When you step back and look at the lessons from Trillion Dollar Coach, what's striking is how simple they are. Put people first. Build trust. Focus on the team. Care. These aren't complex algorithms or groundbreaking business models. They are fundamental principles of human decency. And yet, in our fast-paced, metric-driven world, they can feel revolutionary. Bill Campbell's genius was not in inventing these ideas, but in having the courage and consistency to apply them in an environment, Silicon Valley, that often prioritizes code over character and disruption over decency. He proved that you don't have to be a ruthless taker to succeed at the highest levels. In fact, he showed that being a giver, someone who invests in the success of others, is the most powerful and sustainable path to success. His playbook is a powerful reminder that at the end of the day, every business is a human enterprise. It's about people, with their hopes, fears, and dreams, coming together to build something. And the leader's job? The coach's job? is to nurture the human side of that equation. To create an environment where people feel safe enough to take risks, supported enough to grow, and connected enough to do their best work for the good of the team. So, how can you start applying these lessons in your own life, right now? You don't need to be a CEO or manage a huge team. This playbook works everywhere. Here are 3 simple actions you can take. First, practice the trip report. The next time you're in a meeting, whether it's for a group project at school or a team huddle at work, resist the urge to jump straight into the agenda. Take 60 seconds to go around and ask a simple human question, like what's one good thing that happened this weekend? Or what are you excited about this week? Build the human connection first. You'll be amazed at how it changes the dynamic of the entire conversation. Second, do a 5-minute favor. As Adam Grant writes, helping others doesn't have to be a huge, time-consuming effort. Think of one person on your team or in your life today. Is there one small thing you can do to help them that will take you less than 5 minutes? Maybe it's making an introduction, sharing a link to a helpful resource, or simply sending a text of genuine encouragement. Be the person who gives energy, not the one who takes it. And third, practice free-form listening. In your very next conversation, make a conscious pact with yourself. Don't think about what you're going to say next while the other person is talking. Just listen. Absorb their words, notice their tone, and try to understand their perspective. When they're finished, instead of jumping in with your own point, ask a question to learn more. This simple shift from waiting to talk to listening to understand is the bedrock of trust. We've walked through the key lessons from Trillion Dollar Coach today. But a summary, no matter how detailed, is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It shows you the landmarks, but it can't give you the feeling of the sun on your skin or the sound of the local music. The real value is in the journey. If these stories about compassion, leadership, and putting people first have sparked something in you, I truly encourage you to pick up the book. The experience of reading it, of letting Bill's wisdom sink in page by page, is where the real transformation happens. And if this conversation has added some value to your day, do me a small favor and hit that subscribe button. That way, you won't miss out as we continue to explore the books that have shaped the world's most successful minds. Let's keep learning and growing together.